is irreplaceable.
This is the end. Nothing else is in the way now.
What is up, everyone, and welcome back to episode 10 of Into the Westworld. This is our weekly recap and review show for the latest season of Westworld, and this happens to be episode 10, the season finale, The Passenger. I'm Griffin, one of your hosts, as always, and I'm joined by two great co-hosts, Mr. Tyler Tompkins and Mr. Zach Pope. Tyler, let everyone know how you're doing.
I don't know how I'm doing, man. I don't know. That was a crazy episode. I'm doing good. Like I'm doing physically, I'm doing good, but mentally, I don't know.
You still picking your mind up off the floor?
Yeah, man. A lot happened. I like the episode. I like.
Yes, there we go. We were all wondering, is Tyler gonna actually like this episode? Is he gonna be that contrarian thorn in our side that's just gonna keep poking us and prodding us and not getting with the program? But he actually liked it, so that's good. And Mrs. Zach Pope, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. My jaw hurts from dropping so much and saying what the fuck so much last night, and physically actually jumping out of my seat multiple times.
Yeah,
I love this episode.
Absolutely. I put out a tweet last night that was literally our
texting.
And I'm not even kidding. Like, there were several moments where I jumped out off of the couch, like leaped in the air, just freaking out from what was going on. And I mean, we'll get into it a little bit later.
We'll get into which ones made those.
I want to start this off just with overall thoughts on the episode. Then we'll kind of like break it down a little bit. There's really 3.5 distinct parts to this episode. It's an hour and a half long episode. So there's a lot to cover here. And then I think we might wrap it up with a little bit of, our thoughts on the whole season, because this is the season finale episode. So we can now kind of like bring everything together here. So just overall thoughts. I'll start with this one. I genuinely was floored. Like I have never seen anything this extravagant, elaborate, well produced, just and so many moving parts that came together and helped the showrunners stick the landing almost damn near flawlessly. Are there maybe some loose ends that will tie into future seasons? Absolutely. But it was weird because I was texting you guys. I was like, this is like watching a movie. This is like watching a movie written and directed by the Nolan brothers. Several moments really reminded me of Inception. It even had like a little bit of a Christopher Nolan like ending montage thing towards the end, which I was like, whoa, this is incredible. But overall, there are just so many moving parts that they were able to tie together in clever ways. And I think it just made for one of the most jaw-dropping episodes of television I've ever seen. Probably the greatest season finale I've ever seen. I was genuinely blown away. The show has continuously been able to top itself week after week after week. And it ceased. It just doesn't. I don't know how they do it, but they find ways to do it. So, Tyler, let's go to you next. What are your overall thoughts on the episode?
Yeah, I'm going to kind of steal something that you said, but I mean, I think it's something we all clearly felt, and everyone else who watched it, is that this felt cinematic. Like it honestly, it felt like to me, this felt kind of like one of those things where they, the TV show, this is like the last thing, but they do like a movie for it instead of an episode. This felt like Westworld, the movie. Yeah. Going back to the Nolan brothers, it also makes me curious too. Like, they are both really intelligent guys, but I wonder how much he goes and if he goes and gets help from his brother, like with stuff like this, Yeah. Or maybe Christopher Nolan goes to Jonathan Nolan. Because I don't know. It just made me very curious. But just seeing how this all unfolded, it was very pleasing. And I was kind of rooting against it too. I was hoping that I could kind of trash on it a little bit just because it makes me frustrated. But there are so many good surprises.
You're gonna get hate comments for that.
I know, but just 'cause, like, that last episode was frustrating, and I told myself, I said, this finale, it's probably not going to be that great because I didn't really care for the season 1 finale that much. But this was something else. It felt very different than any other season finale I've ever seen before. Yeah, so I really liked it.
Yeah, you briefly bring up the season 1 finale. I personally, and like, as much as I love that finale, this blows that one out of the water.
I agree.
This whole season blows it out of the water.
Which
the whole season too,
because the first season was so incredible, and somehow they've managed to top it, which just that blows my mind in and of itself. But Zach, how about you? What are your overall thoughts on the episode?
I loved it. This is my favorite episode. Again, like it's been a while since I've seen a show where, or even just in general, where I've watched something and I've literally jumped out of my seat and screamed, "What the fuck?" with my jaw on the floor. And I think that's the reason. That's just incredible writing right there, and just incredible surprises right there. And again, I have to reiterate what you guys said. It felt like a movie. It literally felt like I watched the movie, and I'm trying to think of the last time where I watched a television show and I was like, this feels like a movie. Like, I'll even say Game of Thrones doesn't feel like Game of Thrones is cinematic, but I've never felt like it feels like I'm watching a film.
Like, there's certain scenes in Game of Thrones where you're like, oh, this could be in a movie,
right?
But I'm still watching a TV show.
It's the structure. Like the this episode was structured was very much like a film.
And maybe for all I know, the next Game of Thrones season will be like that since they're taking so long. But however long they take to get me the next Westworld season, it's going to suck waiting. But I'm totally for it if it's either just as good as season 2 or better, especially with everything they set up. And I love that we obviously all had a feeling where this season was going to end up with them going into the real world. But we didn't know how they would get there. And the fact that I was so utterly shocked in how this whole episode ended, because there was times where I'd pause it and I'd look at the time, I'm like, holy fuck, I still have like 40 minutes left, and all this stuff has gone down already. It is such an incredible writing, and damn, I am so impressed. I watched this episode again actually this morning.
Did you really?
I had to because I was so floored, and there was times where I was rewinding the Charlotte Hale reveal. That scene I rewatched like 3 times because I was like, holy fuck.
You gotta go back, dissect it, make sure all the pieces like are coming.
It's like my mind had to like go, and it makes me look back at like our other podcasts where we were like, oh yeah, Tessa Thompson, she's probably dead this season. Like, she's a bigger star, she doesn't need this show anymore. And now it's like it's like fuck, dude. It makes you look back, and it's like it's again like how season 1 made you look back at like the whole William and Men in Black reveal. Yeah, and just this season opened it up even more. I fucking loved it.
Yeah, for sure. I think the what do you call it? The episode it not only felt cinematic, but like it also have like vibes of like a series finale.
Yeah,
it had that
this felt like this. Yeah, I was gonna say that actually. In my mind, I'm like, what are they gonna do? Like, this felt like the end.
Yeah, right. It's kind of crazy.
And the fact that again we still have like 3-4 more seasons left.
Right, supposedly. Yeah. Well, go ahead.
I'm just saying, like, it's like for me, it's like obviously I can like pick and point like what they're gonna do next season, and obviously it looks like we're getting like a Magneto and Xavier kind of thing with Dolores and Bernard, but it's like, what else do you do? Like, where's the Man in Black go? Obviously, with that end credits thing that we'll get to. Who's actually dead? Like, obviously, man,
he survived.
Obviously,
yeah. Go ahead. Sorry, Zach. Go ahead.
Shocked. No, you're fine. It's just like for me, it's like who actually died and who didn't.
Right. Well, and that's the interesting thing, because I jumped over to Entertainment Weekly because they did a Q&A with Jonathan Nolan. And we can't give him all the credit. You know, Lisa Joy and him are an incredible pairing. And I really should have looked up the director's name, but the director of this episode was phenomenal, did a terrific job. But he was doing a Q&A with Entertainment Weekly. And the first question they asked him was like, okay, who are the mind balls that Dolores put in her bag? And what characters are we going to see come back? And like, he didn't divulge any information, but he's like, this is definitely the last time you're going to see some of these characters. Like, he wasn't shying away from that. So it's not like everyone is going to come back like some people are afraid of. This episode, it clearly had stakes. I think the stakes were realized, and he's not going to try and take that away, which I like. And it'll be fun speculating. But then he also did say that we probably won't get the next season until like 2019, which kills me. But you know what? If it gives us another season like this, fuck it, I'm all for it, man. Like take as much time.
It sucks waiting. It sucks waiting. But I mean, HBO. It's cool that HBO was like, take your time. Like, it's cool that they did that with Game of Thrones. They're doing that with Westworld, and just all their shows in general. They're like, take how much ever time you need to make the next season as great as you can make it.
Right.
Where some series is like, okay, you got to rush out the next season. Then you can totally tell it's kind of like crap. So I'm not going to like throw out names, but I'm sure people can always pick out like what shows kind of did that.
Well, and that's, that just goes to show the difference between like network televisions and then something like a subscription service like HBO or like Showtime or something like that, but specifically HBO because they're just doing things that are really just extraordinary. So let's start to dive into this episode in more detail, breaking it down. I've separated it out into 3 chunks. Really, we've got the stuff that's happening before the flood, which is everything with William and the Man in Black and all that stuff like that. And Dolores actually, and then Dolores is involved in each part, but you know what I'm saying. Then we've got the after the flood, so when we see Bernard washed up on the beach, that whole thing. And then we have the when they enter the real world, which that'll be the last thing we cover. So let's start with the before the flood stuff. So we really there's a lot that goes on in this segment in particular, and it's really just like Dolores and William, and they come into contact with each other after like Dolores takes Teddy's mind ball from his head after he shoots himself, and then they pick up.
May he rest in peace.
Right, may he rest in peace.
Yes, I don't think he's not coming back.
Right, those are my favorite parts. I thought when they actually. Well, we'll get into that, but
yeah.
Anyway, so she picks up Teddy's mind ball for a later purpose that we'll see later on. But then she finds the Man in Black, and they have a nice encounter there where it's like they're kind of similar because they've like pushed the people that they love away, but they're only working together until their interests don't align anymore. And so that was a really nice dynamic there. And then they pick up Bernard, and then they reach the forge. And when we get to the forge, this is really when everything just starts to escalate. And William shoots Dolores. And this is like one of my favorite moments. I don't know about you guys.
No, yeah, that was really good.
He's just shooting her and she's taking the bullets. And it's just like, she doesn't even care. She can't, like, she's like completely in control of her programming where she can't die unless like vitals are struck.
Well, and I love that how she's talking to him. She's like pretty much just walking towards him, and she's like, "You guys created us to become us, and like now your creations are pretty much coming back after you." And I love just that whole sequence leading up to it was just fantastic, especially when you see where like because the whole time I was sitting there, I was like, okay, she put the shitty bullet in there, so something has to occur.
Yeah. And then that was really rewarding when he points the gun at her head, and then he pulls the trigger, and half his hand blows off, and we're like, oh, is this it? Is this where he's gonna die? But then she leaves him. I was like, oh wow, she's gonna let him just like kind of bleed out in agony. But
didn't you think Dolores was gonna die?
Yeah, for a little bit.
At first I was like, because you don't really see where the bullet goes, like when he first shoots it, and I honestly thought that she was possibly going to die in that scene. It was like,
I thought almost everyone was dead when they started killing everyone off. I was like, what the fuck? I was like,
no, it was I mean, no one was really safe this episode, regardless of who they were. It was just like all bets were off. So.
Oh yeah, and then especially when she finally does, or when her body gets shot in the head by Bernard, to me that was like, oh okay, there's no rules for this episode.
Yeah, exactly.
No one's saying
out.
Yeah,
everything's thrown out.
Yeah,
so she outlived them, or the Man in Black outlived her. Okay.
Yeah, right.
We all thought he was done. I mean,
I know that was that was one of the craziest parts. Is when we get to the end of this, and it's like he's actually still alive. It's like, what the hell? This man,
I know, dude.
But I'm happy though because Ed Harris is like he's so good in the role, and
I'm kind of happy too.
Yeah,
because he's really. I would like to see him get an Emmy nomination too.
Yeah,
or something.
He's really good in the role.
Yeah.
He's done really good this season.
Yeah,
you know what I'll also say about Dolores? This is the first episode where like I've liked her story throughout the season, but it's obviously been my least favorite throughout the whole season. But this episode, like really just like putting the main focus again on Dolores made me really like her character again, especially where they're taking her. And I was very happy that they did that because this whole season, like she's kind of been there, but like I felt like we've only gotten one really episode that's like focused directly on her.
Yeah.
And then this one kind of was the next focus to see like, okay, yeah, she's going in to the next like season as like pretty much the main character, her and Bernard.
Yeah.
And that's something this show does pretty good for myself, at least, is like I'll be Team Maeve one episode. I'm like, favorite character. Next episode, I'm like, oh, Maeve's cool. Dolores, I'm Team Dolores all the way. Makes me kind of jump. And now I'm like Zach, I'm totally into her, especially Tessa Thompson too.
Yeah. She gets a nice boost from this episode.
Hell yeah.
But let's dive into when we first meet Maeve now. So the Man in Black's hand is half blown up, and they enter the forge, and then they do a cut back to Maeve. She's sitting on the table, but she's back in control, and she gets the host to kill the technician that's working on her, and then she meets up with like Hector, Armistice, Lee, and the rest of the gang. And then one of my favorite sequences in the entire series happens, and it's when the QA troops show up, and then she is this herd of mechanical bulls through the freaking wall controlled by Maeve, and the way it was shot, and the use of slow-mo and the music and the cuts, and then my favorite shot is like the one of the bull like spewing
going over
the
edge,
and agree.
It was cool to see like every bullet that went through, you just saw the more like pieces fall off of them. You saw like the mechanical parts more showing. Maeve is just such a bad. I mean, I love that scene where she's just laying down. He pulls the paint up and you just see the bodies get up behind her. I'm like, oh fuck, here we go. She's and then I seen the guy's like neck get cut. It was such like. Maeve is such a good character. Thandie Newton, man.
She's great.
In that bull scene, man, where you see the bottom half of it is like mechanical.
Yeah.
That's something that would go on that One Perfect Shot Twitter.
Yes.
I could see them like using that. That was one of my favorite shots too. I really like that.
Right. And one of my favorite parts was how it was like my voice is sorry, very, very bad here. It's just cracking all over the place. But one of my favorite parts is how it was like a direct tie-in to like one of the things from the opening credits. Like I know that was done on purpose, but it was like really cool to see like the same shot like from a different angle actually play out. I was like, oh, that's what that means. So that was just kind of like
it was awesome.
I didn't even realize that. So now I like it even more.
Oh my gosh. But yeah, Maeve has her badass moment, and then we get one of the most rewarding moments for a character in the episode, which is Lee's sacrifice. He essentially goes out. Great. Yeah, that was really poetic, especially because he's like one of the head narrative guys. So it was like he goes out into blaze of glory, giving the speech that he wrote for Hector, and he finally becomes the hero that he writes in his stories. The
that
person
he wanted to be.
Exactly. Like the person he never felt he was able to be, and so that was really kind of a nice little bow put on his arc. And I don't think we'll see him come back. He's
and that's something I think this season did well, or at least the finale did really well, is killing off characters in the best way possible. And I think these human characters we see, like we don't need them again. And it kind of thinned the herd down, where some shows build and add more characters. This show's kind of like, no, we're going to thin it down, maybe add some new characters next season, but really just get it down to like the main characters again.
Right, exactly. So then after that, the group with Maeve kind of escapes, and they're heading towards the valley. Everyone's converging to the valley, like Ghost Nation leading basically the rest of the hosts, which we'll find out. Which we found out in episode 8, they're essentially like helping everyone to like cross over to where the new world is. That I guess what's that guy's name? The leader of Ghost Nation.
It's like
I have it written down later on.
A Kichitma or I don't know. It starts with, let's call him AK.
Yeah, we'll call him AK. I like that. Yeah, but anyways, like he's, because after he had that like conversation with Ford, and what we see from episode 8, like he realizes his purpose is to help the people get to the other side and whatnot. So that was
I liked him in this episode. I really liked him in this episode too. He did a lot, but he didn't really do a lot at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Right. It was like a nice accent that also was used to like tie in episode 8, and episode 8 is a great like single episode, but then they also like were able to weave it into the larger story, which we were kind of curious as to how they were going to do.
And it worked perfectly.
Yeah, for sure. So we've got Charlotte Hale and the Delos operatives converging on the valley as well, with Clementine basically being the harbinger of death. Just
the fucking Black Plague right there.
Oh my God. Yeah, seriously. And then we go back to the Forge, and this is where we get some of the most interesting stuff in the episode. So we have Dolores and Bernard enter the Forge. and they're more specifically going into the virtual world that Delos created, similar to like what we saw when Bernard entered with
the cradle.
The cradle. I always want to call it the Crucible, and I have no idea why, and it bugs me. But yes, the cradle. And so inside there, we see like James Delos as like this insane maniacal maniac in the park, and Bernard like tells us that was used as the baseline to create like the host version of him, which is really interesting. But then the more interesting part is when they go to his old house and then they find Logan.
Yes, that was great.
Yes.
And seeing Logan come back, Ben Barnes, that's his name, right?
Yeah, Ben Barnes.
Yeah, Prince Caspian. It was really cool to see him like come back and actually have an integral part to this episode. Yeah, because I've always liked his character, but it was cool to see what they actually did with him. And that last conversation with Delos and around the pool, that was heartbreaking. It's tough. That was
definitely one of the more like emotional moments for sure. And really just, I mean, like as he says, that was the moment that defined him as a person, and it's really kind of tragic and sad. But the interesting part with the Logan is it's like the virtual version of him, but it's based off of like Jim's memories of him as a son. So it's not entirely him, which is kind of cool. And anyways, he's tasked with essentially running the forge. But anyways, yeah, going back to that moment when they're by the pool and he's like, I'm all the way down now. I can see the bottom. Like that was some powerful dialogue there. And then James Delos is just like, no, I'm done with you. Like,
just leaves it. Yeah. Such a good moment. And again, like going back to the script, the dialogue and the actors they get to perform this, because none of these guys are huge A-listers.
No,
they're like some of the most, like, I mean, you could make an argument that each and every one of these actors are underrated.
I would make an argument for each and every one of that. Yeah,
because they do such a great job with the dialogue.
Yeah. And he was basically recreating all these hosts just to kind of see if they could control themselves like humans. Is that why he was doing that? Or
no? What do you mean? Like
when he was recreating his James over and over again.
Yeah, so basically he was like the whole purpose of them gathering the guest information was so that they could be immortal. They could live forever. Their likeness could be put inside of a host.
That's what I was thinking.
And that's a great segue into the next part here, which is that Logan then goes on to explain that the park's efforts to like replicate the human consciousness and everything is like incredibly easy to do because human nature doesn't change. And there's a great line here that I want to read. It's he said, I need to know why they make the decisions they make. The more I look for an answer, the more I realized they don't. The best they can do is live according to their code. None of them are truly in control of their actions. That was like
that was good.
That was just a great like quick little sentence there that they threw in there. And then he's like, it only takes like a couple thousand lines of code to replicate accurately like a person's behavior. And I was just like, whoa, okay.
I love the books that they were going through and like, you just saw her reading all of them. It adds to that. I mean, the cinematography. Fuck, dude.
Yeah, because that was what was Dolores was looking for, I guess, the whole time, right?
Right. That was the weapon, because we were the whole what is the weapon? And the weapon was the knowledge
library.
Yeah, arming herself with the knowledge of humans so that she'd be able to survive in the real world.
Yeah, that's really cool because again, it's like, I mean, it shows a show. There's no point in predicting.
Yeah,
I mean, it's fun, but I never would have.
We don't know. Yeah. No, yeah. I thought it was a fucking dragon, or we all thought it was an actual, or we all thought it was like an actual weapon.
Right. It was something that she uses against like the Delos guys to like kill them, or something that she uses to like get off the island, which she does, but not in the way that I think any of us saw coming.
No, not at all.
No.
Yeah.
Like I said, we all assumed where it was going to go, but it caught us off guard on the how it was going to go.
Right. And then the next part that happens here is super interesting. So Logan then opens the door, which has been mentioned all season, and we finally understand what it is. And it's basically a gateway to this virtual new world, like an Eden or something like that, where the host.
That's one of the first times I said, "What the fuck?"
Yeah,
that is my favorite part of the episode, like hands down,
because it was like the first time where anything like super just like it kind of left the ground a little bit, but not in like a bad way.
And I love how they showed the two scientist guys who would create them saw, and they're like, what the fuck door are they talking about?
Well, exactly. And I think that's why it was able to work, because it was only something the hosts could see. So it's like, it's not leaving reality too much, but it lifted it up just a little bit in order for the host to like have a visual representation of what's going on.
Yes.
Yeah, because in my mind I was like, oh yeah, this could happen.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, Westworld it could. Yeah,
right. In Westworld,
I mean, it will.
Yeah. No, but it's cool because it offers the hosts like an opportunity to like they can have their new life, they can do whatever they want, and they'll be like uploaded into the forge, I guess you can say. So. And that the door is like on the cliff, so like when they enter it, their consciousness leaves the body, goes into the door, and then they fall off the cliff into the water below, which then ties into what we saw from the beginning, all the bodies from the beginning, which I was like, oh shit, that's how it happened, not how I was expecting, but it makes sense, right?
And that's why I was like, again, I'm just like, never would have guessed this in a million years. Like, you cannot guess that. You cannot guess that ever.
That's why the preview episodes are so hard to do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like you're only given such a tiny bit of information off of those like little previews they show you after the end of the episode. And it's like, all right, well, it looks like this might happen, but then you watch the next episode and you're like, well, that was completely wrong.
Yeah. And I know we're about to get to it, but I loved everything that was happening in front of the ravine.
Yeah.
Or Eden or whatever. With
whatever
and all that.
you want to call it.
Yeah, I mean, but
that was great. Go ahead, Zach.
Yeah,
go ahead.
For me, I'm just gonna say, like, after that though, everything that takes place like back in there when all the crew goes down there and stuff, that's when the episode really like threw me back, and I literally screamed at like all those moments.
Yeah,
so I know.
Absolutely, it gets super mind fucky,
and it's still like 40 minutes left there. There's still like 30 minutes left.
Right.
And it's like,
it's like reaching a climax and you're like, wait, there's still so much time left. Where could they possibly go from here?
It was intensity between Dolores and Bernard, because Dolores was like against it, right? Like she was like, this is false reality.
Exactly. That's what I was going to get to next. Is Bernard and Dolores leave the forge, and she wants to deny the hosts basically an afterlife because she's so like hell bent on her core beliefs of trying to get rid of like the human data from the park. But in the process of her doing that, it would also like destroy the virtual world that I guess Ford created for the host. So it was kind of like, what are you going to choose? And then she has a great line. I've like took note of like several lines in here that I thought were great.
There's so many great lines.
She was like, no world they create can compete with the real one. I don't want to play cowboys and Indians anymore, Bernard.
That was fucking great.
That was like one of the greatest lines in there. I was just,
it's like what if you're like when you were a kid, like and your action figures came to life. That's like something like that they would say.
Yeah,
I'm fucking tired of this shit.
Yeah, she's like, you woke me from a dream. Now let me do the same for you. And then one of the best lines in the entire episode happens, and it comes from Jeffrey Wright in an unreal delivery. He's like, I trust that you'll kill as many as you can. This isn't a dream, Dolores. This is a fucking nightmare. Oh my God.
The way Jeffrey Wright says fucking is like perfect. Like every time he has those like breakdowns or those moments, like especially in the last episode, it's like Emmy. Like he has to get nominated. I know we keep saying this, but I will be utterly shocked.
And I've been, I like that. I like Jeffrey Wright's performances a lot, and y'all clearly love him too. But I've always been like, to me, I've always been waiting for that moment so I could be like y'all, and that was the moment. I was like,
yeah,
that scene with that line.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, that was great. He needs
like, for me, like
some kind of nomination.
The dialogue he gets in here is like the stuff that Peter Dinklage gets for Game of Thrones. Like he always gets like
exactly.
Yeah.
And like the greatest lines.
Yes.
Yeah. Exactly. He gets some really, really nice zingers. And like, I was talking, we were talking about this in our text chain, but it was just like after episode 7, it was, or maybe it was even before then. I don't remember, but it was just like episode after episode that he was really an integral part of. His performance just kept on elevating. He just kept elevating his performance. He kept bringing his game. And then finally we get this episode, which is right up there with probably episode 8 from season 1, the one where he realizes he is a host.
Yeah, that was a shocking moment too.
Right, that was a really shocking moment. I think he played that off really well. But in this one, it's just like they delve even deeper into just like the lore and the story and stuff like that. And for his character, especially, it just knocks it out of the park. Seriously, if he doesn't get nominated, I'm going to be so disappointed.
Yeah, if you break it down, I mean, that is a really difficult performance. Like even through season 1 and this season with the whole, what's the guy, Anthony Hopkins character?
Ford.
Yeah, like with all the Ford stuff. I mean, it's a really good performance. That's hard to pull off, man.
It really is, especially because, like, we see later on that he scrambles his brain. We'll dive into that a little bit more. But like, so he's playing, like, you got to think of it from an acting perspective. Like he's playing that angle, and that so he has to be like essentially like confused all of the time. Then he's got like these different timelines where his person is like at a different stage. And it's just like being able to show all of that range and like play off the different personalities. It's just, it really is something incredible.
Special. Something unique.
Yeah, for sure. So after that happens, we get a big moment where Bernard shoots Dolores and cancels the purge of the data. But unfortunately he's a little too late. And like the forge has begun to flood, and this is the giant flood that causes like the water we see at the beginning
in the first episode.
In the first episode where Bernard's like, I did this. But he shoots Dolores, and I know, Tyler, you're like, man, I was like kind of skeptical on whether or not she was dead.
I was too.
Really? I was like, oh my goodness.
Especially when they came back down there, I was like, watch, she's gonna fucking get up and start shooting them or something. Because I kept looking at her face. Yeah, I'm like just waiting for her to like blink or something. I was like, oh no, that body's dead. Yeah. Well, I mean, it shot her right in the eye. I guess in the back of the head, and it went through her eye. So, but yeah, that was really cool, and we'll get back to that a little bit later on because that becomes much more important. But we've got that all going on inside the forge, and we go outside, and Maeve and the other hosts are arriving at the door, and they're beginning to enter and stuff like that. And Clementine shows up, and she's like, turning the hosts against each other. And then I'm sitting there though, and I'm glad. I was like, fucking shoot her. Just shoot her off the fucking horse. Yeah, and then they do, but it's too late. Like it's just like a wave of like this insanity that's spread up through the host. It's like, oh my gosh, this is just crazy. And then we get an incredible conclusion to Maeve's season 2 arc where she says goodbye to her daughter. She uses her like abilities to freeze the host. Same, dude. I was like, oh my God. And then she allows her daughter, the daughter's new mother, and then the Ghost Nation leader. AK. Yeah, I think I have it written down here. Was it Akacheta, or I think Akachita. Let's go with that one. Because it was, and seeing that tie-in realized in another episode was great. And then they enter the new world. And then we get that touching moment where Akachita is reunited with his long lost lover, which was that was beautiful. That was like such a poetic ending for his arc. Yeah, I deep down, I was hoping there would be a little bit more to his character since we had just gotten his full episode, but it was still a very powerful moment. Like it was one of the most powerful moments in the episode. And I think that's why they had to take a whole episode to really tell his story, because they hadn't shown
you needed to,
so much of him, and that's why you needed to, because for it to totally work on understanding why are we caring about Ghost Nation, why, because for the longest time we just thought they were just savages, but they're not.
Right.
And that's what was great. That's why that episode was so integral, especially for this last one. But Maeve going like this, like wielding the Force pretty much.
Yeah.
I think for some people, I like The Last Jedi, but I'm just saying, I think some people think that she's probably the Luke Skywalker right there. And that's what I wanted from Luke.
That was like, a little bit of a moment.
And it was so great. Such a great send-off. And if we don't get Maeve again, I hope we do, and I'm thinking we will. But if we don't get her again, that was a great send-off.
I hope we don't. For me personally, I mean, I would love it, but I don't want it because it was so
poetic
perfect.
Again.
It was, And then she gets gunned down. She's got that like smile on her face, and it's like her job is done. She did what she had been trying to do all along. And I exactly, Tyler, with you, like if that is the last of her character,
it mainly they didn't do her dirty like Teddy.
Yeah.
Teddy gets a nice conclusion.
It was good. Yeah. I mean, this was much better, more satisfying.
Oh, for sure.
I think it's just because we kind of like James Marsden a lot. We wanted more of Teddy.
Dude.
Yeah.
Hopefully he comes back. He won't.
No, he's done.
He won't.
I think he is.
He's Charles Manson now for Tarantino.
Oh my God, we're going with that casting now.
I'm saying he is. I'm saying he has to be. Like, I'll be shocked if he's not.
Right. So in the outside, the door closes. The forge failsafe triggered like this flooding, and then Bernard exits the forge and he sees all the dead hosts, kind of like upset by it.
Yeah.
And then Elsie helped Hale kill all of the hosts. And so she she betrays Bernard like Ford said she was going to. And it was just like one of those things where it's like, even the good people are not escaping their, internal programming as humans, I guess is what they were getting at. And so that was really interesting. I don't know. Did you guys like the turn from her? Did you see it coming or like?
I liked it. And especially some of the lines in there with how she's talking about how like we're coded, like because we're human, and it kind of makes you look at our like society in a sense. And she pretty much says like something about survival, correct? Like she talks about how like most humans are coded for survival.
Yeah.
And if you really think about it, that's totally true. Like even if it's like small things where you see like, say it's like two girls like bickering, one might throw one under the bus with someone else because that's their way of surviving that situation. And it's cool to like look at that because it really makes you look into like a real life perspective. Yeah, no,
I agree with you. That was one of the interesting parts about that thing. So, I mean, like I wouldn't say I was necessarily surprised, but it kind of like doubled down on the statement they were trying to make about human nature. Which is really interesting. And then she goes and she confronts Hale in the control room thinking that she's got some leverage, like that she can like, she can, actually make things right. But then like Hale like responds with, I wish you were the kind of person with the moral flexibility that I need. I've read your file. That's not who you are. And it was just like, oh yes, dig into her. She's like being fake and everything. And she sees right through her. That was one of the
and then pulls out the gun.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I love how
holy crap.
Bernard's watching. I love how Bernard's just watching.
Yeah. Yeah. It was just like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. Good stuff there. But then we go back to Bernard a little bit later, and he begins to realize that like the decision that he made to free the hosts or let them go into Eden was a mistake, because essentially the Forge is killing them anyways. So then he calls upon Ford once again to help guide him, and a little bit later on we get that interesting dialogue between the two where he wasn't actually there. Like Bernard was imagining him, but the decisions that he was making were his own,
which were a nice twist.
Yeah, that was a really nice twist for sure. Because it was like, okay, well, he expelled him from his programming, so how is he going to come back if like he needs him? But
yeah, this is where I kind of started to kind of roll my eyes a little bit, because I've made it known in the past that the Bernard and Ford stuff kind of gets on my nerves sometimes.
Sure,
but it gets really good.
It does.
Yeah. Really good.
And especially when it gets to a certain, I mean, I know we're getting there, but this was really good. I really like this. And I also, Griffin, you said something about episode 9, about like biblical parallels.
Yeah, there's a lot of those in this one.
There's a lot. I paid attention to that in this one, and you're right. I mean, I do think that they do draw on, biblical references for the show. I mean, for sure, especially with the Elsie thing, like you were talking about. To me, that was like Judas, kind of,
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, exactly.
And I just want to say.
No, there's another one that I saw in an article where they were talking about what's her face, Clementine riding on the pale horse.
Oh yeah, I didn't even think about this.
And actually, Hale makes a comment about that. She's like, I think that's a little too on the nose or something like that. It was just like a really like underplayed line, but it was one that was like, oh, that's really funny.
I didn't even think about that.
Made sense.
Yeah, for sure. But so the title of the episode is The Passenger, and we finally kind of get that metaphor explained in this dialogue between Ford and Bernard, which is great. And it's referring to the fact that like people aren't really in control of themselves. They're just like passengers to their own flawed programming. And it's, the fact that it's like, it's only human, it's human nature, that sort of thing. And like having the host, and more specifically having Bernard realize that, was like such a powerful moment. It's like they're programming, they're programmed to survive, essentially. And so seeing that was just that was great, and it was a nice way of tying in the title of the episode, I guess you could say.
And yeah, I love that. And I want to say one thing: if for anyone who watches Family Guy, and you see that Peter Griffin episode where he brings up every time the title something comes up, and he laughs, that's me. Every single time. I don't know why it is, but like I always do that sequence because it makes it's so funny because if you really think about it, like almost every show does it. Yeah, and like this, like in a way that you won't even notice. Walking Dead does it, Breaking Bad does it, and so does Westworld. Like every episode at least has mentioned the title in some way.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. So while Ford and Bernard are having that dialogue, he realizes that he needs to make a new choice, and this is where the big mind fuck comes in. So he retrieves Dolores's mind from the dead body, and he prints out a new host for her and to occupy. And the host is none other than Charlotte Hale.
Fuck, dude.
That was just like, it was so well done. And then I love the sequence where the new Dolores kills Hale. She emerges to take her place. I was like, that was like straight up Terminator stuff right there.
Dude, I know.
I've been sitting here like a little girl waiting for you to bring it up, man.
Dude, no, that sequence, that was the sequence I jumped up and yelled, holy fuck. I rewinded it so many damn times.
Yeah. I was mad at how clever it was. I was like, gosh dang, this is so good.
Especially when he's like, Bernard's like, I changed her. Boom, boom, boom. Just
fuck, dude. Yep. It was, oh my gosh. That was so, I don't know, but I didn't see it coming.
No, I didn't either. That's why I had to keep rewatching it because I was like, did that really just fucking happen?
Yeah. Because it was like, I remember past like episodes we were talking about like the entire season. It's like, oh, Bernard and Teddy are going to switch minds. And while that's like kind of on the right track, it wasn't what happened. And it made like Hale much more of an integral character than she really had been the entire season.
Yes.
There was like
which makes it curious to see where she goes next episode.
Right.
Or next season.
And I texted y'all too. I think we all kind of felt this way. I mean, we love Tessa Thompson, but every time I would see her character, I'd just be like, okay, she's kind of cool, but let's go back to Maeve or Dolores or something.
Yeah.
Because you're like, why is she here? But now you're just kind of like, oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
So and we'll dive into the after flood stuff that happens when the Hale thing is revealed here in a second. But essentially, Bernard, he doesn't want anyone to know that he like did all this stuff. So he alters his memory of the event so no one, including himself, would know what he's done. And then he goes back out into the flooded area and just kind of collapses, waiting for the QA team to find him. And then that brings us back full circle to the beginning of the season. So that's all the stuff that happens before the flood. I know that's a lot, and that's a majority of the of the content we're getting here. Yeah, that's a majority of the episode. Yeah. So then let's move to the after flood stuff. So there is a time jump here. It's like several hours past when the team initially finds Bernard. So all the stuff we've seen in the season where he's been with them, and they've gone through the facilities, and he's been like, what is all this? What's going on? That's the whole thing. All that stuff has happened, and we're now in that timeline. So after all of that, so Bernard and the QA team now enter the forge, and we see Dolores's dead body and the encryption key which he also left to be discovered. So this encryption key is pretty key, no pun intended, because the team uses it to initiate the transfer of the data to the mainland, which the entire season, the entire season we're led to think that this is the guest data, that they're trying to save all the human profiles so they can apply it in another setting. But it turns out that they're actually starting to transfer the data of the hosts that have entered the new world. So that was a really interesting twist there. It wasn't like super integral to like the larger story at hand because it gets resolved fairly quickly, but like it was kind of a nice little, so they're going after the hosts' personalities instead of the guests,
which was intriguing.
Yeah, because we thought it was the other way around, right?
Yeah, exactly. So that was a cool little twist there. And then while all that's going on, Bernard's like claiming that Hale is responsible for the death of Dolores. And then we get a great line from Tessa Thompson. Just the way she said it was like so unsettling. She responds, she's like, "Did I, Bernard?" And then the whole thing comes together and like she reveals herself as Dolores to the team and fucking kills everyone. I was just like, oh my God.
And it was played so subtly.
Yeah.
It was so like, and it's just like the team's just shot, like just like us, like they were the audience pretty much.
Yeah, for real. And I was like, oh my God. Because that was we kind of like broke this in like segments. So like the way it was showed in the episode isn't the way we're talking about it. But like when they had that whole sequence where like, she's like, "Did I, Bernard?" And then it like cuts to the whole like revelation that's actually Dolores. I was like, oh my God.
It's just, it made me have, this time it made me have even more questions, like in a good way. I'm just
right. For sure. And then it turns out that she kind of had like a bit of a change of heart when she died, I guess. And so she like, even though she was like still kind of like upset with him, Bernard, she agrees to send the hosts in the afterlife to like a safe haven somewhere on like the mainland, where they won't be discovered, which is good. So all the people that we see go into that, Eden or whatever, they get to live there undisturbed, which was cool.
With Teddy.
Yes,
it was nice to see that.
Teddy.
Yeah, it was nice. Yeah.
And then she has this line where she's like, we got like one last to carry over into the new world. And then that's when she shoots Bernard. And we're like, oh crap. She's like turning back on him. Like, what, is Bernard dead now? Like, what is going on here? And that was like a great little moment there. But it got to the point where every time someone died, I was like, okay, that might be actually it for them. Yeah, exactly.
Oh yeah.
I was just like surprised at how many of the characters they just like killed. Like, I know we said that at the beginning, but like as you're like going through this, you're just like, what? This is insane. Like that's why it felt like a series finale or like a movie.
Yeah. Oh yeah, exactly. That's why it felt like the end of the show.
Yeah.
It could have been. Like absolutely. The way this season ended, you could literally say, oh, if it didn't get renewed, I'm like, okay.
That's how I felt too. That's how I felt. I mean, I would have had, questions obviously, but I would have been satisfied.
Right. But then you realize she shot Bernard for a reason. She takes his like mind ball out and she places it in her purse with four other mind balls that we have no idea who they belong to, but there are four others in her purse. And then she, has a great line saying basically that she has no regrets and stuff. So then she arrives on the beach for extraction. And this is where we see William in the medical tent and he's somehow fucking alive.
I don't get it, man.
It's great, but at the same time,
I'm happy, but I'm just like,
but do you know what the most important, I know we're going to get to it, but the Stubbs conversation.
Yeah. That
was the one that I was very intrigued with.
Yeah. And she, she passes the neck reader, which I guess, the body that they used to create the host version of Hale was like somehow modified to pass that. But then, like you said, we get the encounter with Stubbs. And they have this great conversation and we essentially learn that Stubbs is a host. And it was so.
Oh, really? See, I still don't believe he is.
You don't think he is? See, I think they really heavily hinted at it Well, not heavily. It was really subtly hinted at.
But I'm on the edge of where I still think he's a human, but he's just very dedicated to them. But do you think, this is the thing I was wondering, did you assume that he knew that Tessa, well, it wasn't Tessa Thompson or Hale?
I have a feeling that he knew Hale was a host. I don't think he knew it was necessarily Dolores, but he knew that it wasn't a person, because I mean, like it's his job to do that. For protecting the host, which is another reason why I think he himself is a host, because
yeah, that makes sense.
The way it kind of plays out, because he says like something about like being one of the first ones, one of the first hires in the park, and I'm like, oh, okay, so he's one of the first generation hosts, and those ones are more I guess susceptible to almost becoming human like we saw with Maeve and Akacheta.
That's true. Yeah, you know what? Yeah, I could see where you're coming from. Yeah, you know what? I'm on your side now.
Yeah, so that was a really interesting conversation, though. You could totally dissect that in a little bit more, but
yeah, I'm thinking he's probably a host too.
Yeah, you got that vibe too.
Well, I guess
I just thought it was a little bit too on the nose when he said my core drive.
But I think that was also the dead giveaway. Like that's the primary drive. Like that was a very purposefully placed line. That like if he wasn't a host, then like that's just like a really, I guess it would have been kind of like an odd thing to say. But at the same time,
do you think we're gonna get more Stubbs now, or do you think that's it?
I do,
like for his character,
because of that encounter being so like. Not like underplayed, but it was like so subtle, and there was like a lot of like stuff there. Plus what else is that Hemsworth brother doing? Like this is his show. Like, I could see them using him later down the road. I don't know. What about you, Tyler?
Yeah, man, the show's hard to predict. I was with you. I was like, I think there will be more of him, but I don't know. It could be one of those things where it's like, oh yeah, it's kind of an underrated character. Let's give him his big moment or whatever here.
Sure. Well, exactly.
I think he will come back probably. Like, I think we'll definitely see more of him. I'm going to go with that. But
yeah. I
don't like predicting this show, man. It makes me really nervous. It makes me really, really nervous because I'm always wrong.
Yeah. Well, it's also one of those things where they've killed off so many characters this season. So maybe like pushing him into a more prominent role.
That'd be cool. I'd love that.
Yeah, for sure. So after that whole thing happens, Dolores gets on the boat, and then they cut to Felix and Sylvester, who are the two goons that gave Maeve the heightened intelligence. And they're like tasked with salvaging any of the usable host bodies on the beach. And then there's a great shot. They turn and they look at Maeve's body, and we're like, okay, so she might be coming back.
Yeah.
All right. I could see that. I don't know if I want that to happen, but like they leave the door open if they choose to do that.
Yeah. Again, I don't like predicting. I don't like it. This show makes me nervous, man.
Yeah, for sure.
Again, like you said, anything's possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and so then, like I said, Dolores is escaping on the boat. She's got like the balls in her purse. Bernard is one of them, we know, but we don't know the other ones. And then the last thing for the After the Flood segment is we get that shot of Teddy entering the new world during like the Christopher Nolan montage thing.
I like that, man.
Yeah, it was so fulfilling for his character because like he gets the happy and peaceful ending that he always wanted.
He deserves it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I didn't think we'd get much of him at all for this finale.
Yeah.
I was worried that we weren't going to get any Hopkins.
We did, but we did.
Yeah, a little bit. We did get a little bit of him, but I was worried that when the show was going, I was like, oh, wow, they're not going to have any Anthony Hopkins in this. I mean, if he wasn't in there, it wouldn't have killed it, but I was very wondering when he was finally going to show up. So, and I feel like we're probably going to get more of him next season. Just minor lick, though.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question is, do you think this is the end of Ford, or are we going to get more of him in?
I think it's going to be subtle ways with Bernard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it'll be like sprinkled
again, but that's it. See, but I don't think he'll be a main character.
I don't know about that because there was that encounter between Bernard and Ford where essentially he let him go. Like that was it. Like he said that.
Well, I'm thinking more of like flashbacks and stuff. That's where I'm thinking of it as, because that's where the show places us as. Is even though as the show started, the timeline was very jumbled, and then throughout the middle of it, there was really no time drawing, like kind of going back and forth until like this episode again. So I have a feeling they'll probably show some things like that where they have like Logan pop up and stuff. And I mean, what's Hopkins really doing? Like, I'm sorry, but
I mean, he is an A-list actor, so I'm sure he could be doing many other things.
Did you see Collide?
No, I didn't. I really did not want to. Is he in that?
Yes, I'm pretty sure. If I remember, yes.
Great.
He has a lot of spare time. He's on Twitter a lot. Dude has a lot of spare time.
Posted any more videos?
I don't know. I need to check.
I'm surprised he didn't.
He posted something for the finale.
I would have.
I hope he did.
I do too, but whatever. All right, so now let's move into the third chunk here, which is the real world, the mainland. The hosts leave the park like we predicted, and they enter not all of them, but like Dolores, Bernard, Bernard's mind, and all of them. They leave the park. So we get a cut to the real world, and this is a great trick that they pulled here. So we get Dolores calibrating Bernard, and I think this was a really well written kind of like turn of events here, because the entire season, like we were talking about, we're like, oh, this takes place in the past. This is like we had that episode where we get the realization that Ford used Dolores to help shape Bernard based on her memories of Arnold and stuff like that. And then it's revealed that the moments were actually taking place back on the mainland in Arnold's old house after the events of season 2. And that it was just really Bernard perceiving Dolores as wearing like the classic blue dress and stuff and whatnot. But when they do that like sweet transition, we clearly see she's in like her modern apparel. So that was a really nice kind of turn of event there that I did not see coming.
It was, because I mean, that's stuff that we've seen like throughout the whole season. And it makes you think like any moment that they had with those, is that what they've been leading up to this whole time? Like, is every moment we've seen of that really been that?
Oh, yeah, true. Because there were moments like that in season 1.
That's what it makes me think now, is that like, wow. Because if you really think about it, because that, okay, I'm going to be honest. Every time they did those, it's intriguing. Yeah. But I was always like, what the hell is this going towards? Yeah. Because sometimes it doesn't even tie into the episode. And that was my one thing about season 1. I was like, okay, those scenes are cool, but what's it go to? And now for me, it makes me look at it and say, no, this is like, that's the payoff. Yeah. And I even said that in the beginning of this episode when I was watching. I was like, I'm still curious. And I was going to mention it on this today if they didn't say anything about it, but now they finally have. So it made me kind of open up for stuff.
Yeah, no, exactly. What about you, Tyler?
Yeah, this part was, okay, I told you earlier in the show, sometimes I struggle to keep up with it, and I usually have my phone handy by my side reading the Wikipedia page as I'm watching it. And I was reading what was going on as I was watching, and it's like, okay, again, something else I never would have predicted, and that's a nice little, like kind of Zach was saying, it's a nice little payoff. Yeah. So I guess I guess I'm a little confused on something. So that is happening in the present, right?
Yeah, that's like, for all intents and purposes, yes, that is the present now. That is where we currently are in the timeline.
And that's Bernard, the host, right?
Yeah,
or is that
that's the host.
Because he's okay.
Yeah, because she had like a host printer in the house that she's using as like her base.
They left for her.
Yeah, yes. Like her home base or whatever. And that's how she was able to print the body, and she's shaping him based off of like the mind that she has, but also like I assume her memories of him as well, because we learned in the season that you can use your memories of that person to essentially bring them back, which is kind of a nice little philosophical thing there. No one's really dead if you remember them, that kind of thing. But then we get the Xavier Magneto-esque exchange between the two of them that Zach was alluding to, where it's like the two balance each other out. And there is more than likely going to be times when they'll need to like call upon each other for assistance. And then Dolores has this awesome line where she's like, if I were human, I'd let you die. It will take both of us if we're to survive. You'll try to stop me. Both of us will probably die, but our kind will have endured. So it was just like,
Well, let's be honest. They probably both will die now.
Yeah, they probably will.
That foreshadowing. 4 seasons from now, they're going to be dead.
Right. It probably won't be next season. Maybe not even the season after that. But whenever the show is going to conclude, their fate is ultimately inevitable. And so it's kind of like an interesting, battle of perspectives and stuff
and the
like
wits
that.
And stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. And then we see Hale there as well. So we're led to believe that I guess Dolores duplicated her personality,
or is someone else's body in there?
Maybe that's true.
I don't know. I mean, that's like where I'm kind of at is like, yes, replicating her. I think there's 2 theories, and we probably won't even fucking know till the show comes back. And it's either she either duplicated herself, which would be an even cooler thing, or someone else is in there that she took. Which for me, I look at it and I would see Maeve going in there. Like if for somehow she got Maeve or a different character, because you just have to think of like whose things could she have gotten.
I mean, it could have been any of like the multiple, sidekicks that she had with her in her gang. I don't know. That's an interesting point. I didn't even think about that. Maybe she did like transfer consciousness to her Dolores body and then put someone else's consciousness into the Hale body.
Because those balls, those are consciousness.
Yeah, right? that's their mind.
And that's why I'm wondering is she gonna still be Hale? Like, is she gonna portray Hale and use her to take down like the company itself? Maybe because Hale's a big, or is it more of like Hale's just gonna quit her job and she's gonna do her own shit now?
Well, Hale's dead.
Well, yeah, that's my thing. But like infiltrate, and just like fuck it, like do her own thing.
Yeah. I don't know. That's interesting. It's like really interesting to see where they're going to go with that. If she did duplicate her personality, then we've got like 2 kind of Doloreses out there in the world, and she can use the one that is in the Hale body to essentially like, go undercover and whatnot for whatever revolution she's planning. So that was really interesting. And then we get the last shot of Bernard like opening the door. We don't see what's on the other side, but we just see him leaving, and that was great. That was so great. And they had that the Radiohead song playing. God, man, that was a great way to end the
they always do good with the music.
They do.
The music was much better this season, I thought. I like
I think the whole season overall was better.
Yeah.
Yes.
It was so satisfying. And if the episode were to have ended there, I would have been like, I don't even know if I want to watch another season. Like, that was so poetic. Like,
like how you top that?
Yeah, seriously, man. It was so bold. And the writing, I know we keep talking about it, but it's just like they stuck.
Who directed this one? Do you guys?
I don't remember the guy's name.
His name starts with an F. That's all I remember.
I'll look it up. While you guys are talking.
But it was so well crafted, and I really got to give the showrunners props on that. But let's while you're looking that up, Zach, let's jump to the post-credit scene.
How did you know there was a post-credit scene?
Because I just left the credits on because I was still.
Oh, you left it on. Okay, because if you wouldn't have said anything, I would not have.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, I was decompressing. I was just like, fuck.
And when it came back on, were you like?
I was.
Oh, wow.
I was like,
so the guy who directed this episode, he did. This is his first episode back for the season.
Okay.
But other shows that he has directed is he directed a lot of the episodes of 11, 22, 63, which I still haven't seen.
Oh my god!
And he directed Lost. He directed a couple episodes of Lost, and then I have to give a shout out because I love the show Chuck. He directed some episodes of Chuck, which I really liked.
So I've basically liked every single show this guy has been a part of. So that
you do like The Good Wife? Because he did a lot in The Good Wife too.
I haven't seen The Good Wife, so I can't.
Person of Interest, pretty.
I
solid.
just needed to hear 11, 22, 63.
Seriously, man, it's so good, so good.
And then he did episode 7 in season 1.
Was that?
Which is like, that's the main one that Bernard finds out.
That's the one. Yeah,
I'm pretty sure that's the one.
Phenomenal episode. Yeah. Okay. Keep bringing this guy back. He's incredible. Okay, so we have the post credit scene, which first of all, fuck yeah, Westworld for having a post credit scene. That's just
fucking take notes from Kevin Feige and Ferris Bueller's Day Off, man.
Yeah, seriously.
So is there one of Ferris Bueller's Day Off?
Are you serious?
Yeah. Is there? I did not know there was.
Like,
there's one. That's why the Deadpool post credit scene is so funny because that's literally what it is.
Ladies and gentlemen, we apologize for Tyler.
Oh my gosh, I'm watching. Ferris Bueller's Day Off tonight.
Maybe Tyler, you need to just like sit through the credits every now and then, just decompress.
I guess every movie from now on.
Yeah,
you have to appreciate. Fallen Kingdom has one.
Really?
I didn't see it yet.
Yeah. Okay, we'll talk about it after. Yeah, it's small. It's small.
Okay.
Like literally after the credits, or like in the middle.
Yes. Is it worth staying for?
I wouldn't say yes.
Okay, all right.
It's not huge. Like you can probably just look it up on YouTube.
Well, Tyler hasn't seen the movie, so I would say Tyler definitely stay. But
okay, yeah.
Anyways, getting back to this post-credit scene, yeah. So William enters the Forge, and based on like the current state of the facility, I'm speculating, and a lot of other people are speculating that this takes place several years after.
Lisa said it's years ahead of where they're from. Years. So
that's where
they said we might not even touch on that for seasons.
Yeah.
So
which is cool.
It's cool, but it's like, oh damn, it's gonna suck.
So it's great because then he comes face to face with his dead daughter Emily. And then he gets the great fucking Ed Harris line. He's like, "Oh fuck, I'm already in the thing, aren't I?" I'm like, oh god, I love Ed Harris in this show. But then she explains to him that he's not in the system, and then she leads him to James Dallas's fidelity apartment, if you will. And then she begins to run a fidelity test on him, except, the tables have turned now. And instead of him asking the questions to James, she's asking the questions to him. And his expression is priceless. That like last shot of him where he's like, am I a host? Yeah. It's like, oh my god.
That's been a huge theory. And I will say this, there's so many theories on this damn thing that we could do a whole nother episode of this podcast just talking about this whole last post-credit scene.
Right.
But I feel like the William that we saw at the end of this season getting carried off from Dalos's guys, like with the by the river and the boats and whatever.
Yeah.
That's the real one. I don't think that was
I agree with that. Yeah.
What I believe though is that he has been trying to do the same thing that Delos was. And this iteration of him went through the exact same thing he did. Blew his fingers off and just ended up. Emily's really dead. That's just a host body of her. And that's like their way of like kind of how William did it with Delos. It's kind of just he made a host version of Emily to do it for him.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's where I got it from.
Yeah, that's pretty in line with what I think. I did read one theory. I think in the Entertainment Weekly article that I was reading, the I forget what the writer's name was, but they said that somebody prints out a version of him from like a secret vault or something like that and entombed him in the Forge with a copy of his daughter. And it's like this hellish punishment, basically like giving him like a taste of his own medicine for all eternity. And I was like, fuck, I love that. If that's true, I absolutely love that.
That would be, yeah.
That'd be good stuff for him, though. That would be awful.
Yeah, for sure. What do you think, Tyler?
Yeah, so I was going to ask, Emily, do you think that's probably just a replica of Emily?
I think it's just a replica, yeah. I think it's a replica.
Yeah. I don't think that really is...
At first, I thought it was her. And then the more I read and think about it, I was like, no, I think it's a host version of her. That's not like totally her, but just enough to do the fidelity test.
Yeah, I was thinking too. It's like, oh, maybe that's the real Emily, and the one he killed was a replica or a host. But this is in the future. So
for a second when he went down, I was like, oh, did he go to a different floor or something? Because I didn't really piece together it was a different time period. And then when I saw behind the girl's head, I didn't like see it was Emily. I was like, oh shit, is that his wife? I was like, if Ford's fucking doing this, that's pretty fucked up too.
Yeah, and that goes back to that theory I read that I was like, if somehow Ford like managed to pull this off like from beyond the grave, that would be the greatest thing ever.
Yeah. Do you think he will come back in season 3?
Ford?
Or no. Ed Harris.
Oh yeah,
yes,
absolutely.
Yeah, I think. Okay, yeah. I think next season Bernard, Ed Harris, and Dolores are going to be our 3 main protagonists.
Yeah, we're just not going to see that particular scene with Emily for a while.
No,
probably,
yeah.
Maybe it'll be like if we see it, it'll probably be towards the end of the last season. But I don't think they're going to touch on where he is at, like going down for a while. I think it's just more of like theories for that part. It'd
be cool if they did kind of like a Breaking Bad or Better Call Saul thing where like at the beginning of each season, they'll play that, but then you don't get to see any of that until like the next season. Like they'll play.
That'd be cool. Because Better Call Saul, it feels like they're leading up towards.
Yeah, leading up to something, and that's what
That's what I'm waiting for.
I like that kind of structure. That's pretty cool.
And it's risky for a show to do that. Like I don't watch Arrow anymore, but Arrow does that a lot. And Arrow for me at least dropped the ball on that part. But it's really cool when a show can play with the timeline and really make it work.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, and this show just does it better than any other show out there right now.
It's one of the best written shows ever made.
I agree.
Like you know what? Like one of my favorite written shows, or like two of them right now, is Game of Thrones and then The Leftovers. I thought The Leftovers was brilliant in how it was written, but this is right there with it. It doesn't go like aside with Game of Thrones stuff, or Game of Thrones is great and stuff, but I really feel like this one's just so special in the way it's written.
Yeah, it's like, and especially this season, I think it's a lot more accessible to people. Like the first season was definitely a little more like higher concept sort of thing, which is
my dad actually finished the second season. He's like, I love the second. He hated the first one. Thought the first one was boring. Yeah, just didn't work for him, and he thought the ending was stupid. Yeah, but he said the second season caught his interest a little bit more. Yeah, some still boring parts, but he said it's enough to get through the show.
Yeah, and it's a different kind of writing too. Like I look at Westworld as like this huge, like complex piece of machinery, like with like there's a lot of little pieces to it. And
I wonder if that's why they took so long to bring back the show, is that they knew that was an issue. And if the show is going to succeed, they need to find that fine balance, which I thought this season did very well.
Yeah. I mean, there were definitely like moments that were just like exposition, but it was like done in a way that was kind of tastefully done. It was like,
and exposition's hard to do. Exposition's really hard to do.
It is in a concept like this. And like if they kind of did it through the Logan character, which was nice. It gave you something interesting to like kind of chew on while that was but yeah, I mean, I like we said at the beginning of the episode, probably not going to get another season until 2019. And I'm okay with
2020.
I don't know about that. I think it'll probably be 2019. That seems more in line with like the direction of the show.
Surely they're almost done writing it.
Oh, see, I'm thinking 2020 just because Game of Thrones is going to take over next year, and then I feel like they're going to wait a whole another year.
Oh crap! Yeah, next year. Next year is 2019.
I thought it was 2017 too.
Yeah, I'm gonna be. Yeah, you're right, Zach. Probably 2020.
Yeah. Oh, you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. Because they got to definitely take some time to.
Yeah, and they said they haven't even started writing it. Pretty much, they just have like an outline, pretty much. So they haven't even started writing the scripts yet.
I didn't know that. Yeah, 2020 then.
Yeah, but that's the thing I like about this is they know where their trajectory is ultimately, but then they just have to like flesh it out,
Which is nice because that's like the best way to do certain stuff. I mean, there's certain franchises and stuff that can't do that now, but
yeah,
I mean, it's nice when you hear from the screenwriters. Yeah, we know where the show's gonna go, but we got to get there.
Yeah. Absolutely. Completely agree. All right. Well, this has been a long episode. It's probably the longest episode we've ever done.
Well, I didn't make it long. It's the longest episode.
Yeah. You just got to like break down like you said, it's like a 90-minute episode. There's so much in here. We wanted to break it down for you guys, help you understand it, but then also like throw in our 2 cents on everything. So let's move to closing thoughts on this one, or I'm sorry. No, the thoughts on the season as a whole. Real quickly, and I guess we can kind of tie that into closing thoughts as well. So, Zach, let's start with you.
So my closing thoughts of like the whole season in general. I love this season so much better than the first one, which I didn't think I'd be able to say because I love the first season too. But I thought this season, just every episode was like a puzzle piece fitting together perfectly. And I was so engrossed without this whole season. I think there was one episode that I thought was just fine. And there was that one filler episode, but still that filler episode tied into the ending. One of the best season finales I've ever seen, and I am so excited to see where they take the show. I have no predictions on where they're going to take it because I'm literally probably just going to be wrong, but I overall loved it. If I had to give it a rating, like if I was rating it like 1 out of 10, I'd probably give it like a 9.5. Like I think this season was like almost perfect.
Yeah, for sure. Get that. Tyler, how about you?
Yeah, great season. I think coming from someone who didn't love the first season, I thought it was hard to keep up with, But for me personally, they have basically, or Jonathan Nolan and Lisa Joy have almost found that perfect line of balancing, the complexity of the show and just making it a show more accessible to, others who have a harder time watching it, like myself. I think season 3, I think it could be possibly even better if they keep going this route and taking time and, thinking it through, because I didn't expect this season to be this good. So.
Wow. That's a bold statement there. It'll be hard to top this season, but I agree the trajectory is in the right place. And I think now that they're outside of the park, we'll start getting really, really interesting stuff. As for myself, I think this season definitely tops the first somehow. Like I said, the first season of this show was one of my favorite seasons of television ever. And now the second season of this show is my favorite season of television ever. It just week in and week out, it just continued to impress me. Yeah, there were those filler episodes. I think there was like one, which whatever, it's
still good.
Yeah, so like I was still enjoyed watching it, but there was definitely one where you could feel like, oh, okay, so this is just kind of like just connect
to get us to the next place.
Yeah, exactly. But the season finale, like I said multiple times, is probably my favorite season finale that I have ever seen. One of my favorite episodes of television I've ever seen. It was a cinematic experience. It actually really felt like a movie. Like I said, directed by Christopher Nolan, written by the Nolan brothers. They have such a knack for these great concepts. And overall, I feel like people who didn't like the first season, watch the second season. Well, first of all, if you didn't like the first season, you're probably not even watching this. But if you know someone who didn't like the first season, I would say have them give this one a try, because it's a lot more accessible. There's a lot more stuff going on that's interesting.
And that's how some of the best shows are. Like Breaking Bad, first season was just fine. Every season after that was great.
Yeah.
So some of the best shows end up like that.
Yeah, I agree. And, I feel I do partially agree with you, Tyler. I feel like even though it'll be hard to top this season, I think that they have nowhere to go. Or I'm sorry, I think they're going to continue this like upward trend of really impressing people and whatnot, especially with the time off taken to develop the third season. I'm really hoping we're going to be in for something interesting.
Yeah, since the show, it feels like, I don't know, it feels like it's getting smaller with the, since there's less characters now, which that could be a really good thing, man.
Right. I mean, we'll get even more intimate with them, which is great.
I think that's what the show needs, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah.
So. Well, it's like that episode 8 with the AK. It was great to get that personal story.
Dude, yeah, man. Yeah, honestly, I would love that. I would love that.
More episodes like that.
Yeah, I would really like that. That gets me excited, because it would definitely become one of my favorite shows, probably of all time, if it went in that direction, just seeing it get better and better and better. Yeah. That'd be really cool.
Yeah.
Then I'm sure even for yourself, you already loved season 1, one of the best seasons of television you've ever seen, and season 2 topped that. So I can't imagine how you feel.
Yeah, I mean, at this point in time, I can't even fathom it getting better than this. But if it somehow manages to, just holy crap, dude! Like,
the real question: are you going to buy the Steelbook?
Absolutely. I mean, I don't. So it's kind of funny because it's like I don't own the first season yet because I can just watch it on HBO Go. Yeah. But like, I want to own the season.
Go get that damn Steelbook from Best Buy.
Yeah,
I will probably go back and rewatch this season like within the next couple days. Just rewatch the whole thing.
Oh yeah,
I love it.
Then you can binge it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like a 10-hour, well, probably longer than that movie. But anyways, guys, so those are our thoughts on the season finale of Westworld season 2. Great stuff all around. Thank you to my two co-hosts for joining me throughout the entire season. It's been great. Maybe we'll have some, speculation episodes coming up. We'll definitely have a preview episode up probably sometime. Well, maybe not a preview episode, but just kind of like a theories episode up at some point in time. There's really no urgency with a new season. Not like
probably when the first trailer comes out.
Yeah, probably something like that or whatnot. But it's been great, and thanks to you guys for joining me on this adventure. Zach, where can everyone find you?
You guys can find me either at Sandwich Dom's website or on YouTube at Zach Pope Reviews, and also on Twitter at Pope the King or Stardust at Zach Pope. I do tons of movie stuff just like all these guys do.
Hell yeah. And Mr. Tyler Tompkins, the man who is skeptical of this show, but I think we've won him over. Where can everyone find you?
Yeah, you can find me YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. It's up by searching Tyler Tompkins. Should be the first one that pops up.
Hell yeah. Well, and guys, if you like this, be sure to like it, share with your friends, and not only subscribe to the YouTube channel here, but subscribe to the podcast feed, and leave us a rating and a review. We might have some little like episodes sprinkled in if we find topics regarding Westworld to talk about. But this will probably be the final episode of it is the final episode of the season. So anyways, but if you like everything that we're doing on here and you like the content that we're putting out, head on over to iTunes or iHeartRadio, wherever you listen to podcasts, and leave us that rating and review. It would be awesome. But anyways, yeah, you can like Men vs. Movies on Facebook and follow us on Twitter simply by searching Men vs. Movies. And lastly, guys, if you like me specifically, if you like what I have to say, you can always give me a follow on Twitter at Griff Schiller. All right, that'll do it for this episode, guys. And until next time, take care.